Thank you. Can you hear me okay? What is a church for? What purpose does it serve? It is an institution. We are a unique institution in that range of institutions that call themselves a church or a religious body. We know that there are institutions throughout society that make society possible. A university for education, the medical centers and hospitals for our medical care, the legal system for maintaining laws in society, the law enforcement part of our society to theoretically at least maintain order in society and so on. And so we are an institution, but what are we for? What do we represent? What vital function do we serve in society that justifies our existence as an institution? Well, I think that we are unique in that we serve many purposes. We are a place that provide an arena, a safe place for children and young adults to come to learn about religion that is positive and life-affirming. We certainly do that. We are a place that provides pastoral care that is the manifestation of compassion in the world for people in need, and there is certainly a great need for that. We express our values out in the world, and so we have people engaged in social action of various kinds. And there are other things that we do as an institution, but I would also say that we are a place which encourages and enables people to develop their own beliefs and principles, to share beliefs and principles with others in common, but also to cultivate their own unique beliefs and principles. But there's one great problem that confronts us as we think about that role of our institution, which is that we live in a society in which the idea of belief has frequently been made into something toxic. I'll never forget several decades ago, when I had gone through this long process of going from being a United Methodist minister, which is the faith of my family, what I grew up in, and making the big leap, the giant leap for me at the time as a young man into the UU ministry. And I'll never forget my first encounter with, as a pastor of a UU congregation. This was in the Deep South. And I realized that almost everyone there had been wounded by the belief systems that they had grown up in. And that the belief systems that most people were familiar with and had been affected by had negatively impacted their life. And so we are UUs, it's not so much in the Northeast or the Pacific Northwest that this is true, but for many people, the word belief is somewhat toxic because it has the connotation of some institution telling us what to believe or telling us what to think or giving us a belief system that is false or is like a fairy tale or is inauthentic to us. We have a system of belief, a way of thinking about belief that is unique. And part of that unique way is that we believe, and this goes back deep into the roots of the Unitarian Universalist tradition, we believe that people are entitled to, and indeed obligated, to create their own personal beliefs. That each life is profoundly unique, and so my beliefs cannot be your beliefs cannot be my beliefs, that the beliefs that we cultivate must be profoundly nuanced to our own personal lives, but at the same time, we share in common certain beliefs. So last week we talked about Article 2, and we know about the 7 principles, the 8 principles from the past, and the revision of our principles and purposes that we honor and celebrate. And it's a way in which we convey these common beliefs, we convey what we hold in common. It allows us to know as individuals that we belong to a group that has some coherence as a faith community. And in a way, it's like a big tent. It's like this ceiling above us. It is something that allows all of us a place to be in common with others. Now, some people will love the principles, and they will gather right in the middle of the tent, right in its center. Some people will be on the periphery, on the edges. Some people will be slightly outside the tent and come in the tent and then out the tent and so forth. But everybody, in a way, belongs to that organization, that religious movement that has the one big tent. And it is very important to advertise who we are. If someone is out there trying to find a faith community, we need to be able to say, here are some things we hold in common. Because if we say to people, oh, this is a place where you can believe whatever your heart dictates, that is very disorienting and very confusing to people. I've talked to many people, and I can assure you that is the case. So we need a way to say, these are some things that we hold in common. There is a connection between our personal beliefs and these collective beliefs. It is sometimes a large connection, it is sometimes a small connection. That really doesn't matter. What matters is that there is a connection. Before I turn to my personal beliefs, as a way of illustrating what I mean by beliefs, let me confess that the word belief poses challenges for me, as I alluded to earlier. As a UU minister in my very first congregation, and up until this very moment, I have been very aware that many people have been traumatized by religious beliefs. And many people are keenly aware of the gap between what churches and religious communities say they believe and what they actually do. As a result of this, the word belief is toxic to many. But even though we live in this challenging circumstances, we seem to be compelled as human beings to create beliefs. We seem to be a belief-creating species. We seem to need a system of beliefs that enable us to make sense of the world, to tame its wildness, and to bring some order into the disorder of life. In this sense, we are compelled to create beliefs, and in fact do, whether or not we consciously choose to do so or not. The question is, do our beliefs promote well-being and peace for ourselves, for our families, for our communities, or do they fail in that regard? In the first half of my life, I held beliefs which now would embarrass me. They were subjective, drawn from the culture, drawn from the influence of my family and of the religious influences around me. I adopted beliefs and absorbed beliefs that I thought I should absorb. I'm aware now that there are things in the past I believed in that I no longer can. And that makes me very wary about talking about beliefs. So over the years, I have tended to be more and more cautious about what I can genuinely say I believe. In the second half of my life, I began to try to develop beliefs that were based on fact, that were true, and helped guide me in positive ways. As an illustration of what I mean by the cultivation of personal beliefs, I wanted to share some of my own, which of course cannot be yours, but might be interesting as a way of stimulating your own thinking, because, as I said earlier, the important thing is that we cultivate our own beliefs, what is true for us, what can be a positive influence on our life, and impact our lives and those around us in positive ways. Having said that, let me share some of my beliefs. The first one is that I believe the highest aim of life, human life, once basic needs are secured, is growth in maturity. And this belief, like all the beliefs that I'll mention today, I believe with a very high degree of personal certainty. By maturity, I mean a life lived in accord with self-derived principles and goals. Maturity is an ongoing effort to integrate principles and beliefs into our daily living. Families, congregations, communities, and society generally are dependent on the level of maturity of their members. And one reason why our country is in such an incredible mess today is that there is a staggering absence of maturity in its leaders. The second belief is that all life is interdependent. By this, I mean that every moment, every second, every millisecond, we are literally dependent upon a plethora of factors: air, water, sunshine, the earth, other people, and myriad other things too numerous to count. We are never independently existing, but we are continually connected in countless ways to nature, to other human beings, and to all the conditions which make life possible. The next belief: life is an incredible gift. The story of evolution is the most incredible story one could ever imagine. Life as we know it, or what eventually became life as we know it, occurred with the Big Bang 14 billion years ago. The earliest form of life we are aware of, microscopic organisms, emerged about 3.7 billion years ago. The first complex multicellular life occurred around 600 million years ago. Millions and millions of years went into the evolution that led to the forebears of our species. Our species emerged around 250,000 years ago. Agriculture began around 10,000 years ago. Complex human societies emerged about 5,000 years ago. Buddha and Jesus appeared around 2,000 years ago. We are the only creatures on earth who have a combination of conscious awareness, the ability to discover the laws of nature and the universe, communicate through highly developed language, live intentionally, practice some degree of personal agency, can be empathetic and altruistic, and imagine a future and move toward it. Science has been unable to find signs of life anywhere remotely as developed as our species. Life and our lives are an unbelievable gift. With millions of years of evolution behind us, to wake up each morning and be alive on this earth is an incredible gift. The next one. Meaningful relationships require a rule-based structure which fosters both individuality and a strong but not engulfing emotional connection. People in relationships, whatever form that takes, a marriage, a friendship, a member of the congregation or a society, must have a rule-based framework to guide them if that relationship is to be meaningful, sustainable, and fulfilling over the long term. The ideal of any relationship is to be as fully oneself as possible. To be as fully oneself as possible and emotionally connected to significant others as deeply as possible without losing one's individuality. I have other beliefs, but I will spare you talking about them. But that is what I mean when I say beliefs. What difference does a belief make? Rather than being something that is oppressive and toxic, as our culture seems to teach us, beliefs can be clarifying and liberating. They give us orientation. What we believe, we come. If our beliefs are positive, they attract positive events to our lives and positive people into our lives. We have here the opportunity in this congregation to do the exercise of thinking about our beliefs. Lisa, could you raise your hand? She will be one of the teachers that guide us in that effort. Could we stand now as we're willing and able?